So in this session, I'm going to talk about the introduction of GUI. First, let's see graphics classes. So in the original version of Java, graphics components were in the AWT library. AWT is the abbreviation for Abstract Windows Toolkit. And it was okay and good for developing simple GUI applications, but for different platforms, AWT components mapped to platform-specific components. It was prone to platform-specific bugs, and its primary package is java.awt. When Java 1.2 was released, a set of libraries known as the swing components were introduced, with the idea of replacing the older AWT user interface components. And it's less dependent on target platform and a more robust and flexible library, and its primary package is a javax.swing. Java was trying to move away from swing library updates and focusing rather on a newer API for GUI building known as JavaFX. So JavaFX API includes GUI, graphics, and multimedia. Multimedia such as images, animations, audio, and video. Layouts and components here are handled with a special form of XML, which is known as fXML. While fXML tags can get complicated, the usual technique is to use the JavaFX Scene Builder application, which contains design tools for dragging and dropping components onto a layout, then letting it write the fXML for you. There are also classes to help embed swing capabilities into JavaFX apps as well as vice versa. You need to note that in Java 1.8, JavaFX is not listed in the standard edition API. It is a separate set of extension libraries. In Java version 9, JavaFX was included in the standard edition API, but it was removed from the standard development kit around Java version 11. Currently, both Swing libraries and JavaFX extension packages are being supported currently as options. So in this course, we will learn the core Swing library setup as well as an intro to JavaFX, as Swing has been the primary set of libraries for building Java GUIs for a long time. There will still be plenty of code out there using Swing, so it will still be relevant for a while. It's good that you note that newer development will likely start moving more to JavaFX. Swing is still worth learning not only for Java code libraries, but also because it contains code and library patterns that you will likely find in other GUI library setups in other languages. In introducing both APIs, we hope to learn also about the general concepts that would be found in any GUI library setup in any language. So let's see what are primary GUI concepts. The main factors that make up a graphic user interface or GUI in a program are first, the components and containers, then the layout of component on the screen in a container, and event handling. The components are often pre-built items like button, text areas, slider bars, and the like. Some types of components are containers, meaning they can serve as ways to group other components together. Some components can act as canvases for general images, shapes, or other drawings. Layout refers to how components are rendered on a screen relative to each other, right? So like positions and their size. And event handling refers to setting up actions that can trigger functionality. For example, when a button clicks, selecting from a menu, pressing a key on the keyboard, time expiring, and etc. So here you can see Java Swing Graphics API. As you see, all of them are listed. And by clicking on them, you would be directed to the page which explain them more in more details. For example, for component is actually base class for all non-menu graphic user interface classes, right? Or container is a base class for container classes. And you may need to know that a container is actually used to group smaller components, right? And the most important containers are, as you see here, JApplets for holding the applets, JFrame for holding GUI components in application, JPanel, JDialog, right? We also have JComponent. JComponent is the base class for all of the lightweight swing components, which are graphical items, places on the canvases or containers. Its subclasses are the basic elements for constructing GUIs. As you see here, there is a list of common elements. For example, J button. It's for creating push button. J checkbox for creating toggle checkboxes. J menu for pop-up menus. J radio button for radio buttons. JLabel, a display area for a short string or image. JList, that's a component allowing the user to select from a list. JOption pane, a component allowing the user to group up an easy dialog box as an information message or for user input. JText field, that's a component allowing an editable line of text. JText area, that's a multi-line area for displaying text. JScroll pane gives a scrollable view of a lightweight component. We also have helper classes. Helper classes are used by components and containers to control drawing and placing of objects. Some important helper classes are, as you see here, graphics, abstract class, color used for specifying colors in components and drawing, font, specify fonts used in graphics drawing, font metrics, that's an abstract class, and encapsulates information and properties about the rendering of a font on a screen. Dimension encapsulates width and height of a component in an object. Okay, let's see about event handling. First, we have event. Event is actually a signal that something has happened in a program. For example, when a button is clicked, a mouse movement, a menu selection. GUI programs are generally driven by events rather than a specific procedure order, right? So events are handled with event objects. These are triggered by actions on source objects, components or objects on which the event is generated, and they must implement corresponding event listener interface. The listener listens for the event and invoke an event handler when event occurs. We have java.util.event object. That's a base class for event classes in Java. Some examples of event types are as you see here. Action event. Clicking a button, pressing return on a text field. Item event. It means clicking a checkbox, selecting an item. Window event, closing a window, opening a window. Container event, that's a component added to a container. Component event, resizing a component, hiding a component. Text event, changing a text value. Mouse event, clicking the mouse, dragging the mouse. And key event is for pressing a key on the keyboard. These are just a few examples, not all of them. Here you can see some simple examples for different chapters. So by clicking on each of these examples, you would be directed to the example and you can see the example, right? But let's see some of them and learn more. Okay, so in this example, we are going to calculate the product of three integers, right? And let's see. So we will use the Java package javax.swing.j option pane public static void main string args. We have x, y, z, and result. We also have three strings, a string xval, a string yval, a string zval. Right. So xval is going to be j option pane dot we are going to use the show input dialog, right? Dot show input dialog, and here inside the parentheses enter first integer. Y-val is going to be the same as the previous one, so J option pane dot show input dialog, enter second integer, and zval is going to be J option pane dot show input dialog, enter third integer. So by even user enters these numbers, then we are going to assign the value to x, y, and x, y, and z. So x is going to be integer dot parse int xval, and that's the same for y and z, right? And finally, the result would be the multiplication of x, y, and z. And we are going to show G option pane dot show message dialog, null, and the product is result, and system dot exit 0. So let's run the code and see. So as you see, we have this dialog box, right? So it shows enter first integer. So we created this by J option pane dot show input dialog. So if I easily can enter the first integer and press OK. So show enter second integer by the second line. So the second integer is 23 and the third one is 34. And finally the result show message dialog, the product is the multiplication of these three numbers, right? So I can see that here in this box, right, in this message dialog box. So the product is, right, because the product is, and the multiplication, right? So let's see another example. In this example, again, we are going to show the message in a dialog box, right? So the package that we use, that's the same. So Java x.swing dot option pane, right? And we have a public static void main string args, and we are going to show the message, for example, welcome to Java programming in a dialog box. So J option pane dot show message dialog, and here we are going to say null and the message. What is the message? Welcome to, so each part would be printed in a different line. Welcome to Java programming. And then we exit. So system.out, system.exit. Let's run the code and see the result. So as you see, welcome to Java programming. This message has been printed in this message box, and each one in a separate line, right? So in this program, we are going to have two numbers. We are going to add them and show the result in a dialog box again. So again, the library that we are going to use, the package, Java package, is javax.swing j option pane, right? So we are going to have string first name, first number, and a string second number. These are the numbers that are going to be entered by the user. And then we have three other integers: int number 1, int number 2, and int sum. So number 1 and number 2, number 1 is the first number to add, number 2 is the second number to add, and sum is the summation of number 1 and number 2. So the first number, we are going to ask the user for, okay, enter the first integer and show this message on a dialog box. So first number is going to be J option pane dot show input dialog, enter first integer. The second number is going to be the same, but we are going to enter the second number, right? So then we are going to save the integers inside the variable. So number one is going to be integer dot parse int first number. Number two is going to be integer dot parse int the second number, and sum would be the summation of number one and number two. So number one plus number two. And we want to show the results. So J option pane dot show message dialog. Null the sum is plus sum results and J option pane dot plain message. System.exit 0. Terminate the application with window. Right. So let's see the result of this code here. So here we have entered the first integer, entered the second integer. So the summation is 25, right? Okay, so let's have another example. In this example, we are going to use the package JApplet, right? So javax.swing.japplet. So that's a class, public class, while counter that extends inherits from JApplet, right? Graphics G super.paint G int counter is going to be 1. Counter less than equal to 10 G dot draw line counter multiplied by 10 plus plus counter, right?